Hello and welcome to the Defiance NFT Show. This time representing from the middle of the Metaverse, or at least a version of the Metaverse. I'm Real Engine. I'm Robin Schmidt, head of video and multimedia at the Defiant. And where you see me now is not real. I don't know if you could tell. But joining me on the stream today, Alp, if you could bring them in, we have Harry Edmiston from Creative Work Studios. We have Elisa Melito, who is the brains behind Index Coop and X1. We also have Mango Dogwood, who was one of the early adopters of the rug pull NFT, which was the first NFT drop I ever did. In fact, the only NFT drop I ever did. But he's now working at Charged Particles, who've just released a very interesting new vesting capsule product. It's an amazing lineup of guests we've got today, but there are also just a bunch of things, a bunch of questions, foremost among which is, why am I wearing sunglasses? I can't see anything. Harry, good to have you on the stream. Just introduce yourself for the audience here and let us know who you are and what you are doing in the NFT space. We do not hear Harry. Well, that hasn't
a great start.
Yeah, beautiful. Were you muted or something?
I was, yeah.
Bless. He doesn't know how Zoom works, everyone.
Take two. Dogs bark, so then.
Take two. Oh shit, we don't get that. We're live. Okay, go again. Harry Edmiston, everyone.
Hi there. Always a pleasure. Great to see you. Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm a filmmaker. I'm a photographer. I worked in production for years and years and years, and I took a big deep dive into the NFT space about a year ago, and I'm putting together some interesting brand collaborations. I suppose most notably right now I'm working with Rafiq Adenor in a collaboration with an organization called TRISH, which stands for the Translational Research Institute for Space Health, SpaceX, and it's been an interesting journey, and we've been obviously talking quite a lot over the course of the last 12 months, and we are looking at an interesting project that we're putting together right now based on putting vehicle data, biometric data, telemetry data, all the data sets from the Inspiration 4 flight in the hands of Rafiq. And
okay, so you're Harry, you're so modest, it's almost painful. Let's take a step back and let's big up Rafiq Adenor. He's probably one of the most exciting generative kind of big installation artists currently around. Trish, when you say Trish, it kind of almost undersells it a little bit, because like we're talking about humans in space and how little we know about humans in space and the effects of space on physical forms, physical bodies. And so this NFT, as I understand it, is an attempt to take all this kind of collected data and render it as a public good, but in an artistic way, to do something that says, actually, we're on the threshold of a very major new leap for mankind in space exploration and space travel. I should just be your sales guy, right?
Maybe. Be a good idea. I've been asking you for years. I think it's an interesting thing. I mean, Trish as an organization is really the backbone behind everything we're doing with this project. The work that they do is incredibly important. It's fascinating. We as a species understand very little about the human body's existence in space. We really don't quite understand just how hostile an environment it is. Cranial pressure, radiation, like there are some very serious dangers in space. And if it is going to become more commonplace than it currently is, and it's well on its way, these factors really need to be considered from nothing other than a safety perspective at the very least. And Trish is really leading the way in trying to, from a scientific perspective, understand what these challenges are. And it's been an absolute pleasure working with them. They are heavily involved and entwined with some of the leading academic research institutions in the States, like Baylor College of Medicine, MIT, Caltech. And really the access for Rafiq in this instance has really been brought about by what Trish is doing. So it's a sort of interesting melding of some very intelligent people. But this is right up Rafiq's street, and he's jumped into this project, and we've been working on this now for the best part of a year. So it's super exciting, and we're looking at a mid-February drop, and the gates are now open for sort of pre-registration, and the interest has been staggering. So we can't really wait to take the lid off it.
Well, let's dig into that. Rafiq Street. What is Rafiq Street exactly, and why is he such a good fit for this project?
I mean, Rafiq is he's an amazing character. He's incredibly passionate about his work. His interest in data sets alone is just, I think, what drives him. Unusual data, understanding what he can get his hands on and what he can interpret in his own way. I think in the interest of this project, you know, he's been looking at it as a long-term dream to work with space data. In essence, I think he said to us that it's his dream project, it's his dream collaboration. But he's also very much of the mindset that art should be for everyone. He said that art should be for anyone of any age, any background, and to make this happen, he feels that it's a way of using collective memories and collective data for humanity is ultimately what this project's all about. So Inspiration 4 is one of those memories for humanity as the first space tourism, all civilian space tourism flight. And so really he's come at this from a perspective of deep humility, and he's been saying to us how honored he feels to be a part of it. But I guess I'm in the same boat. I mean, I'm really touched and feel privileged to have been able to put this all together.
So to give it some context, Rafiq is an artist that creates massive installations that interpret, you know, for instance, the movement of the ocean, big data. But I think what's interesting about the way he does it is there's always a message behind the data. So he takes a collection of numbers and makes them something, and he gives them soul in a very beautiful, arresting, and challenging way. And that is no mean feat. So how did you end up working with Rafiq? Because he's probably one of the most sought after kind of data computer. I don't even know what kind of artist you call him these days, but of his type, he's definitely one of the most sought after in the world right now.
He paints with a thinking brush. It's a great expression I've heard from him a few times.
Put it on a t-shirt, sell it NFT, just merch the fuck out of it. You know, that's where you're going to make your money, man.
It's not all about the money. Rafiq, I reached out to him a long time ago, actually. I mean, well over a year ago. I've been very familiar with his work for some time, and I was desperate to sort of see where I could explore something by way of collaboration. I mean, I historically came from a kind of brand collaboration background. I mean, I worked at CNN for a long time and directed and produced a slew of sort of global campaigns for CNN clients, and a lot of what we did was storytelling, narrative-driven content. And with that, I reached out to Rafiq, and sort of it planted a seed with me. I reached out to him just to sort of say hello and see what he was up to. And I guess the advent of the NFT space, the two just sort of triggered for me. And I saw that he was getting involved pretty early on, and this kind of came about, and I figured that he would actually be the perfect person. I reached out to him again, and I got a response in 10 minutes. He just said, I'm down. Just tell me what you want. I'm 100% down on this. This is right up my street. Like, this is how it all started.
Was that because
went over to LA.
Is the SpaceX name the thing that sells it? Because if you say SpaceX, then it's like, well, this is legit.
It actually wasn't, because when it started, it was a conversation more between myself and the deputy director of Trish, a guy called James Hurry. James came to me asking about how one might be able to use the blockchain to store and secure biometric data. And those conversations went on for weeks. And it was only when I sort of turned to James and said, look, I think I've got another idea here of something that I would kind of like to champion and see happen, was when I reached out to Rafiq. And then it sort of started moving. And the flight on the agenda was the Inspiration 4 flight. And obviously that took a long time. I mean, just the procedural sign-offs and processes involved with all the stakeholders took months. And for me, I mean, at times I think it was a little demoralizing. I mean, I was very keen to jump into the NFT space sort of head first, and it wasn't. It was a hold, and can't tell anyone what I'm doing. It's all under wraps, and it's super secretive. But when this all sort of came through with what was happening with the I4 mission, you know, I think Rafiq was heavily invested already. So it wasn't so much the SpaceX's involvement in this. It was more about his passion for space, and it sort of just made sense.
Yeah, I mean, we've been talking for quite some time about this project, and you're all kind of, you're one of those people that's like, it's big or it's nothing. It's boom or bust, and I so admire that about you. It's you keep quiet, and then suddenly you unleash this thing on the world, and I'm really excited to see where it goes. And obviously now we know that they made it into space safely, and the data has been collected, and now we can create some great art out of it. But I wanted to move now to Elisa, who jumped in literally an hour and a half ago as a last-minute replacement, but is jumping into the metaverse head first with X1. Elisa, why don't you give us a kind of overview of how you've come into this space and what you're trying to build with X1? If I'm saying that right, it is X1, right?
It's actually Zone, and I think that kind of makes sense. So my background is actually in kind of creative direction in the music industry. And me and my co-founder, James, studied music business together. And you probably think, like, how did you get to building immersive NFT spaces? But what happened was we founded a startup called Our Studios after music school, and we made augmented reality campaigns for artists such as the Glass Animals. We work with a lot of big record labels. And then we always had this vision of making our own thing, our own application. And I think about a year ago, we started getting into blockchain, NFT, DeFi, all that kind of stuff, and started learning a bunch. And I got an Aavegotchi, I think last December, like in 2000, whenever they launched. And it was like, whoa, you can do so many things and you actually own it. And so because
Well, it looks like we lost Elisa. Hopefully she comes back. That's embarrassing. Mango, are you there? I hear nothing. Al, can you hear everyone?
Oh, sorry, I'm here.
I actually can't.
I'm
Okay.
good. That one was on me, but I am here.
You are there. We appear to have lost Elisa. I don't know. She's probably in a back cave somewhere. Well, hopefully she comes back. But Mango, you are on the team at Charged Particles, and you and I kind of connected when I did my first NFT drop, and we've stayed in touch ever since. But Charged Particles, why don't you just explain to us what Charged Particles is and how that kind of how that works, and then we'll hopefully get back to Elisa.
Sure. Yeah. So yeah, and by the way, the rug pull experience was I think still to date my favorite NFT art that I've seen thus far, to be honest. It was a really an incredible sort of thing. And for anyone who's watching that hasn't followed through on that project, there's a couple really good videos on it. I highly recommend. But yeah, since then it's been Charged Particles focused, and we are a Defiant NFT protocol that lets you take an NFT and turn it into a container that can then store other assets inside of it. So a nesting function, a composability layer, which leads to all sorts of different use cases. And obviously here we're looking at vesting, which is one of the more interesting sort of financial aspects of it. But we're also seeing lots of really interesting applications in music and gaming and fashion and the metaverse, restoration, ecology, really just being able to store, like nest digital assets inside one another is a key component we see for the digital future and a functionality of digital objects in general.
So I guess the pitch here is that you can have an NFT, and that NFT can be a container or a basket for other tokens, and those tokens can be yield-bearing tokens like other tokens, or I'm imagining as this thing builds out, more kind of exotic things can be dumped in there. But basically, the protocol allows for recipe creation in terms of NFTs. And I don't think anyone sees NFTs in that way. I think we've seen NFTs evolve and seen functionality on top of NFTs, but an NFT as a kind of basin or bowl for things to put in is pretty wild. I think you guys are the only ones doing that right now. As far as
I mean, I think you see specific applications, and I think there's some stuff going on other blockchains. Like I think Ghost Market has a similar sort of thing going on. But broadly speaking, we're the ones that I think optimize and specialize in it on Ethereum and on Polygon. And I think thinking the furthest ahead about how this the implications of this composability on NFTs, and I think hoping to try to help people see NFTs as more than just digital art or JPEGs as file types, but as really like digital objects that have an element of realism to them, and being able to put real objects inside one another is a sort of a key functionality of objects. Lots of really exciting use cases that we could dive into.
Well, Elisa was talking about Avagotchi, and Avagotchi had wearables. So there was this kind of new technology which allowed you to have wearables. Hopefully, Elisa's back now. You're in the middle of saying something good, I think, about Zone, about where your journey was. Are you back with us now?
I really hope so. My internet never cuts out, and of course it cuts out right now.
Classic.
So I hope it's going to work. I was going to explain a little bit of what we actually do, because it can be complex. One of my biggest jobs right now is trying to just make it as simple and condensed so that people get it in the 5 seconds of attention span you have. So Zone is a Metaverse application, but stop thinking about other Metaverse platforms for now, because we're trying to build the next social network. And where we're coming from is we've been thinking so much about socials, kind of marketing artists and trying to make immersive and innovative campaigns, that we came to this question of what is going to be your profile page when we have 6G technology, when we have immersive technologies in our everyday lives, and how is social media and interaction going to look like? And so, of course, like in the NFT space, we think a lot about that already, but in the real world, let's say, a lot of people don't. But what we came up with is this concept of your profile in a 3D environment. So we're building zones, which are basically NFTs that are land, but also a 3D room, which you can personalize. You can connect your wallet and put your other NFTs inside of it to kind of display them. So here you can see the map right now, for example. There's different realms, different themes. I'm personally very much into all the creative direction stuff, and I want everything to look super cinematic and outer worldly, because what's cool about AR and VR is really we can build something that's impossible in the real world, and so we want to do that. So, but what's cool about Zones is really that users can download our app. So our drop is end of January, and we have a version 1 of the app ready for that. And then they can go into one of the community zones that kind of looks like this. So for those people who buy, for example, this jungle zone or the underwater zone, all 2,500 of those people can go into a joint jungle experience where they can hang out. There will be concerts, there will be exhibitions. And that currently works with just using an iPhone. But we're really waiting for somebody to come through with the AR glasses technology so that it will be able to, you're just at home and you scan your own room with the glasses, and then it's overlaid. Like the Metaverse, your NFT collection, it's all overlaid over your space. And you can see the avatar of your friend right next to you. So that's kind of the vision. For now, it's an app. You can buy a personal zone, and that's where we are. I hope that makes sense for you all.
Yeah, it totally makes sense. And I think everyone's attacking this metaverse problem from a lot of different perspectives, and because there's so many different pieces to it. But I think what we have in our heads is this we've never seen this before thing that just makes the mundane stuff of the world around us less mundane on a regular basis, and then allows us to be a different version or a better version or a more kind of satisfactory version of ourselves when we want to be. And I think that's that the idea of when we want to be is the thing that matters. It's like, it's our choice. We have the agency to decide when we want to be a blue alien or when we want to be just, you know, this idiot with his headphones outside his fluffy hat. And it's interesting because we took this challenge head on. About a year ago, we were looking very specifically at metaverses to produce content in, because it's like, wow, this room that we're in, it never changes and it's boring as hell. And like, we can put a different bunch of lights up, we can put paper backgrounds up, we can do whatever we want, but fundamentally we're always in this room, and that is boring. And I would like to go further with it. We never thought we'd be doing Unreal Engine, but as you can see, my compadre behind the computer there is giving everyone like major headaches right now by moving a virtual camera around, because what you're seeing behind me is not a static background, it's coming directly from Unreal Engine, and we're playing around with this more and more. Fundamentally, the problem with all of this right now is that I'm against a green screen, and green screens suck, basically. You talked about making things more cinematic, Elisa. I'm with you. Like, this technology allows us to be cinematic from the get-go, but in hopefully about 2 months, I will disappear and I will be replaced by a version of myself wearing one of these, which is a head-mounted motion capture device, and then a motion capture suit. Oh, there you go. See that? How boring is that? Nothing fun going on there. But let me give you. Oh, thanks, Al. let me give you a glimpse of what I'm actually what we're dealing with here, because it's so janky. Al, move to the wireless camera. There we go. So this is kind of our setup here, and you can see this is what I'm looking at, and that's you guys. And then I have a monitor here, which is doing absolutely nothing. There's our camera. And over here is Al Gazimov.
It's the Wizard of Oz.
Who is piloting Unreal Engine over here. And what we're planning on doing is having a MIDI keyboard. So this thing here, that'll be able to trigger events live. So we'll be able to hit a key on the keyboard, and we will get an explosion, or we'll get a comment in YouTube coming up, but we'll be able to do all of that in real time live. So basically, Unreal Engine's free, but an Alp Gazimov, priceless. You cannot put a price on an Alp Gazimov.
You cannot put a price on me, man. Sorry.
It's quite the setup.
So there you go. I'm back. Yikes. So that's kind of the demo, and you know, as we get better at this, and as I become more and more of a digital human, we'll be able to kind of embody NFTs that have these 3D models, and we'll be able to actually become the characters that we want to become. It's not a tool where I was expecting to be, but does it count as the metaverse? Elisa, do you think that's a metaverse way of producing content? I'm not sure.
Yeah, I'm actually thinking about that a lot. I'm thinking of what happens when you're wearing AR glasses and you look in a mirror, for example. But I think it's gonna be like that. You're wearing something, you're filming yourself, and then it's projecting it into a virtual environment. So yeah, I think it's definitely part of the metaverse.
It's wild.
I figure we've got to get this stuff pretty, ironed out before we do any generational ships. You know, I don't want to spend, as we're traveling to the next planet, however far off that is, probably don't want to be looking at the inside of the ship the whole time. But dancing around these sorts of environments sounds like a way better use of time.
Well, I'll tell you one big advantage to all of this, which is I think last year we made 350 videos or so, and for quite a lot of them we bought props. We used them once, they went on a shelf, and then at the end of the year we threw most of them away. By producing this way, our carbon footprint is significantly lower, and I think that's a major benefit to doing this, is that we can travel all around the world without going anywhere. It does mean that we get very sweaty, and there's a lot of cables and there's a lot of swearing. But this is production. Harry, you've come from the world of traditional photography. You are a cinematographer. You and I have nerded out over some very, very nice pieces of glass that you own. I don't suppose you've got them to hand, but like Harry owns some serious, like Zeiss Jenners. If you know, you know. These things are just beautiful glass. How do you feel about all this Unreal Engine?
I mean, it takes it one step away from obviously where I kind of come from. You know, I've always felt that vintage glass adds characteristics to production that you can't really get anywhere else. I mean, I've just come off a 3-day shoot where we shot on the Alexa LF with a set of 1970s Technovision anamorphics. I mean, these things, they were the decade choice of J.J. Abrams. You're right there.
Well, the Alexa LF, for those who don't know, the Alexa is the camera that basically took over every single kind of TV production drama job because it was very flattering to women's skin. When we made the move from film to digital, there was a lot of concern that women would be unfairly treated when the harshness of HD took over. But the Alexa softened all that out, and the Alexa LF is the large format version of that. So it takes the original Alexa recipe and then just adds a much bigger sensor and therefore shallower depth of field and more control over depth of field, but also just, you know, more information going through the sensor. It's a beautiful camera. And then you add on top of this, these, yeah,
it's a strong look, but it's characteristic. You get characteristics in glass that that make everything just sort of look that much more sort of visually appealing. And I think for a long time,
but it's the flaws. It's the flaws, though, isn't it? It's the things that go wrong, because anamorphic lenses are just horrible to work with. Basically, you know, you can't get anything in focus. Like the middle of the lens is in focus, but the edge is really way off, and like there's color shifts in the lens itself. And then, like, you know, you want to get a close up on something, but like the close focus is about 10 meters away. They're impossible to work with. It presents
certainly new challenges, but I mean,
for sure.
For a long time I was looking at this from a VR perspective, and it was looking at Unreal Engine as a way to create 3D environments versus stereoscopic image capture, multi-directional, omnidirectional audio, basically a truly immersive experience. And obviously back then, I mean, Nokia had knocked it out of the park with the Ozo, which, you know, although fairly dated now, it was well ahead of its time. And it's interesting that everyone is making a shift towards these digital environments, which are amazing. I mean, I'm absolutely loving what I'm seeing, but I'm also very mindful of where I come from, to have what would be real world experiences that are image capture or even live immersive. And all of that technology is there, but I don't see many people utilizing it. I mean, I think, what is it? The 360 Titan is what? It's like an 8K. I don't think anything could stitch that. I mean, there's the processing power to use. But then again, as the technology evolves, then, you know, this is all becoming a possibility. Metaverse experiences for VR are something you and I have been talking about for a while. I mean,
well, I mean, I guess when we started out, the idea of an 8K red camera seemed far-fetched, but it's kind of normal now. There's no biggie, and also there's a limit to how big the resolution can be before it becomes self-defeating. Elisa, I'm just having a look at some of the environments here. The Wicked Craniums environment looks amazing. Like, what are you building these environments in? What engine are you using?
Oh my God, we're using like all the 3D programs out there, but the prototype is actually built in Unity. We're looking at Unreal right now too, but we've used a mixture of stuff. So for example, for the procedurally generated collection, we had to work with Houdini because it works with those nodes, and you can feed in different attributes and then kind of mix them up in a 3D space, and it was pretty cool, but we actually really had to figure it out. We also have designers working with Cinema 4D and 3ds Max, and it's everything really.
Yeah, it's amazing how these traditional 3D programs that were prioritizing extreme photorealism over everything else had become so bloated that when this really lightweight game engine that was designed to optimize for, you know, consoles and mobile and everything else kind of sort of met in the middle, you went, oh my gosh. And I literally have just been playing around with Unreal for the last 2 weeks, and was just like, oh, you can do this, you can do this, you can do this. And because it's a game engine, because there's so many people developing and working and building on it, and because it's free, There's just all of this material and all these plugins and all these things, and all this functionality that's just there, ready to go. It's wild. So listen, I have an incredible panel of people here. I would like to get into some of the big stories of the day. I'm going to go into NFT stats. I'm going to share my screen. Let's be amazed at what we can see, because NFTs have been going bananas, yo. Absolutely bananas. And one of the collections that's been going most bananas of the bananas was World of Women. Elisa, do you like World of Women? Is this your jam? Because like they've gone wild, absolutely wild. I think at 8 ETH floor I was looking at earlier today. It's just like, how did that happen? Crazy.
Yeah, I love what they're doing for sure. And I think they were one of the first collections that were actually empowering women. And there were a lot of collections that didn't really show female characters. So I like when they launched, but I was too late. Like the floor was already so high that I still don't own one. But yeah, I think I have a lot of great initiatives going.
Well, the volume is insane. 24 million. Manga, do you pay attention to these? Do you look at these statistics and think, okay, well, there are artists here that we should connect with, or is it primarily more kind of NFT and crypto art rather than collectibles that you look at for charged particles?
I am the proud owner of one collectible project that I really care about, which is the Peaceful Groupies. They're pretty casual little dudes, but generally speaking, I don't focus a lot. I'm happy that people are, making it big time and being inspired by, all of these different things and such. And, hopefully not too many folks recklessly investing in stuff they can't afford, et cetera. I think I'm most interested in, what is this generative functionality promise for, things other than just profile pictures of animals. I think like being able to generatively create art, is an interesting thing. You walk around in the metaverse and you've got your the rare, jacket that you're wearing, that you've also got a physical one of, that or augmented reality version of that maps to your body or whatever. And then you're playing your favorite game and, you've earned X number of experience points. And so now you can use like these two different sorts of tokens, put them together and randomly generate sort of new rarity for the stuff you already have, like crafting, fashion, that kind of stuff. I feel like that's like maybe a way more interesting direction for the generative idea to go. But I'm happy to see people making money too. Certainly no complaints about it all.
One of the other interesting ones on this list is Azuki, and we can have a look at the Azuki collection here. Here it is. This is a kind of a manga. Well, it's a bean at the moment, so it's pre-reveal, but it has this manga sensibility to it. But I think that's their Twitter account. There we go. We can go through and have a look. They call themselves a brand for the metaverse, but the art is on point. I think the art is really sharp.
So good.
And there's definitely an audience for this kind of thing. I don't really know a huge amount about what they're planning to do. Obviously, it's membership access to the garden. It starts with exclusive streetwear collabs, NFT drops, live events, bloody, bloody, blah. Very easy to say, harder to deliver. And the garden is a corner of the internet where art, community, and culture fuse to create magic. What does that actually mean? I mean, their ability to execute a website, I think, is fantastic. But just curious what you think of this one, because it really stood out. I was like, this is sharp.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's beautiful. I think there's so many opportunities to tickle people's various like artistic tastes and stuff, because, I think this is obviously beautiful and, other people find different stuff like visually attractive. But I think maybe like one of the best parts is that, the idea that, all right, like our community of, these characters or apes or whatever, can add value to our apes by creating new content in the name of the community. It sort of encourages people to get involved in the additive value process, adding new value to the community and to the art. And so I think like that as a sort of a general spirit and attitude is really good. Like, okay, this project's going to take off if we all like make new derivatives of this and make new games that use these things. And, has everyone thinking that way? I think that's net positive for sure.
Elisa, you called Zone a social Web3 experience. Can you expand upon that a little bit? How you think that might play out and how people would use their zones?
For sure. So we're really building for mobile, and we want to build an experience where like you don't have to go on like Instagram to connect with your friends, but you can have an immersive experiences wherever you go, and that could be using AR glasses in your home, but it could also be on the street or on public transport. So we're looking for a UX where you can enter the metaverse and enter immersive spaces, and depending on which space you're in, you can communicate with different people. And so how that could look is like you have your little avatars, and you can have voice chats, you can have text chats. So that's part of the experience. But the other part that I think is pretty exciting and that we haven't had so far on socials is that the zone token will reward people for engagement. So I kind of call it like engage to earn or something like that. So that when you really like are active and you produce good content and you comment on content in a fair way, that you will be rewarded with a token. So that's kind of part of this whole thing as well, because then creators don't have to run ads. They don't have to work with brands they might not even like. They can just create and be rewarded from the tokens that are generated by the platform by on-platform sales.
And I guess if the experience is good enough, that people will stick around, but also it's on you to design and create that experience for yourself. So again, it's an agency thing. I'm gonna share my screen again. So this is Harry Edmiston's NFT page. So CWS, which is Creative Work Studios, has a bunch of tokens, artist, collector, patron, and team, that will give you kind of a piece of the creative work story. So Harry, what's going on here? What's your version of this kind of community and taking part and being a patron and being an artist for the creative work community?
So we've tried to figure out a way we've tried to figure out a way of how to build a community around the projects that we're doing, and whether these be by way of presenting opportunities to people who want to be involved in artist collaborations we're doing, or whether there are ways we can support artists who are developing things that they would like to share with the community at large. I think we have some bigger ideas of where we would like to take this, a lot of which is being really mapped out right now. But we've been pleasantly sort of surprised. We did a very sort of slow and early sort of feed out of these tokens, alongside getting behind a handful of drops that we've done to kind of give back to people who've collected them, doing free airdrops for patrons, and really kind of mapping out what the game plan is. But it's been a staggering response, and we're in it for the long term with this. And I think we've been in a position where there's a lot that can carry. I mean, I'm a big believer that I think there are still hangovers of the Web 2 that I think could be re-implemented and Web 3 enabled, that I think would be hugely beneficial for a community platform today. And this is the sort of way of how we as an organization want to work with creatives moving forward. But I think similarly, we are also exploring the potential and possibilities of working with brands. And, you know, we've seen a lot of brands enter this space, and I'm not one to sort of judge or critique, but I think there have been instances where we've seen brands be criticized, and in my opinion, rightly, at the best of times, for simply, you know, what look like cash grabs. I think what we want to do is create an avenue where we can allow brands to empower artists and work with them. And I think that's really important. I think rather than, you know, a 10,000 collectible drop of a brand's logo in every which way from the sun, it would be amazing to see a brand get behind 10 artists to realize some sort of initiative that actually puts them in the driving seat. And I think what we're planning to do with this is almost turn our organization into being slightly more proactive in realizing some of these artist visions, getting behind artist projects, and creating a true, you know, in the true sense of community, creating a vehicle by which people can do that. It's early days, and obviously we're looking right now with some of the works that we do as a studio, we're looking at rewarding token holders. So the case in point with this project with Rafik Adenol and SpaceX, in the same way that we're keen to reward existing collectors of Rafik's work, we're also looking to reward people who are sort of on this journey with us. And we might do that by way of early access, and there are a number of things we can do that we're still ironing out. But alongside our own projects, it's about supporting those who are actually our token holders and part of our community. And we're 2 weeks in, and the response has been amazing. So 3 weeks. I mean, it has far surpassed my expectations, but it sort of shows that I think when we're being very open and honest and being very sort of true to what we're all about, like there's definitely space for it here, and it's going to be fascinating to see where it goes. But we as an organization, I mean, we've serviced the likes of CNBC and CNN, and historically we've worked with brands. And I think what we're doing now is, while there's been a big pivot since the beginning of last year, we're looking for ways to actually open the doors and welcome people in to say, like, come and work with us. Like, let's do things together.
Elisa, you said you came from the music industry, creating music experiences. How have you spoken to your former clients about what you're up to, or are you keeping it under wraps for now?
Yeah, we are actually speaking to a lot of our clients and kind of starting to pitch the concept, because a lot of what we're going to do is artist collaboration. And it's really hard to not say the names right now because I'm still like a fan of the artists I work with. But yeah, we are definitely in conversations, and we have been in conversations for a long time. We've actually taken a lot of feedback from our clients just about, like, would you be interested in having a concert or an immersive experience in this type of app? And yeah, they have been giving us a lot of great feedback on the way here, because it's been a few months. Yeah,
Mango, community must be a big deal for you. But I mean, I'm wondering how you connect up all the different projects that you have into a charged particles community, because it feels like you're pulling from all over the place, and it could be anyone from anywhere.
Yeah, well, at the moment we're operating with a sort of guild structure where we have segmented off different areas of interest just based on what community members have started building themselves. And I don't know, I see the decentralized community as like a massive set of overlapping Venn diagrams where, our music guild overlaps with 10 other guilds and DAOs, and, it's all, laterally collaborative, or I like to, think of it that way. Someone was mentioning some of the outdated parts of Web 2 that are sort of still present in Web 3, and I think the idea of maximalism in general is, sort of the authoritarianism of the blockchain. The idea that one blockchain will win, or one project is, needs to be the one to do the one thing. This sort of competitive idea is outdated. So I think just like focusing on like lateral support for anyone with any sort of interest, and then, how, I don't know, the diplomacy between DAO structures is something I think is still in its infancy, and we're still decentralizing. But anyway, to sort of digress a little bit, we've got a music guild that's focusing on, building a pipeline from, the traditional music world into the metaverse, and then back out into the physical world, now integrated with NFTs. And, we have an ecology guild that's trying to figure out how to use DeFi to like plant trees, and, the fashion guild that's thinking about how to make, that industry more equitable. And gaming is pretty obvious, of course, as well, just like ownership of your in-game assets. And, it's like we see ourselves as sort of like the electric grid for a certain type of functionality for all of these industries.
Well, it's funny that you mentioned one chain to rule them all, or one project to rule them all. I mean, in the world of NFTs, there has been one marketplace to rule them all. And that marketplace, of course, is OpenSea. And this week, it was challenged. How did you guys feel about Looks Rare? And there on the front page is Pranksy's gold doodle. Pranksy is a beautiful human being. Did you guys trade on Looks Rare? Did you pick up your airdrop? Were you eligible for an airdrop? How did you receive this one?
Sadly, I was not eligible. I was not eligible for an airdrop. I haven't had time to. I've been pretty heads down in charged particle stuff. It's been pretty bonkers over here the last couple of weeks. But I try to get all of my news from Twitter influencers anyway, so I'm pretty split on this one, I guess.
Wow. So no big responses there. Elisa, anything from you on this one?
Yeah, I like what they're doing so far. I mean, I think I've looked at the tokenomics a little bit, and they give like 75% to the community or something. That is definitely something that, of course, resonates. I like the UX. I personally was also not eligible for an airdrop because I don't have one single wallet that had such big trades.
It was like three ETH volume or something you had to have traded.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I was positive on it. So far, it looks really good to me.
Harry, any thoughts? Just passed you by this one, didn't it?
It did. I'm checking to see if I'm eligible. I think we are.
So the LooksRare story is interesting because it's a bunch of people who I would consider from within the NFT community that have built it. And of course, OpenSea has just dominated everything, and it's making so much money. It's sort of pissed people off as well because there are outages and things are very slow moving. Upgrades don't really happen. And it feels like it's just raking in money. But they also raised a lot of money this year. And so when LooksRare came along, it's like, you know what? Even if this isn't brilliant, like we're going to vote with our feet here and go move there. And even if the best outcome out of this is that OpenSea just, makes that platform better, it'd be really interesting. But there's a couple of things that are actually kind of cool about LooksRare. So for the first thing you could do, for instance, let's say we wanted to go and look at a collection like Subducks. That's just the first name I pulled out of my head. You can make a collection offer. So this is quite a big deal. So you'd say, I'm going to make a collection offer. I'm going to put a bid in on every NFT in the entire collection. So instead of bidding on a single NFT and saying, okay, here's my bid, you bid any NFT that wants your bid can take that bid. So it could be a floor, it could be anything else. Anybody who sees that bid and wants that bid, they can take it. And it doesn't matter which NFT it is in the collection. That's quite a big deal because it basically says the floor is a multiple event rather than it simply being the lowest priced NFT in the collection. That's pretty interesting. And it will create some interesting dynamics when there are people who are looking to pick up floor bids or buy collections because they won't necessarily need to put a bid on in a single one. They just want one of them. They don't care which one it is. That's quite interesting. The other interesting thing, of course, is the rewards. So we click on the rewards tab. We go here. We see, 951.48%. When it launched 2 days ago, it was like 8,000%. Of course, that dropped. But the deal here is you're eligible for an airdrop. You got this Looks token. You can stake the Looks token. And you can see here, I now got nearly 5,000 of these things. Don't ask me why. I'm a degenerate. I've just been on an absolute bender for the last 6 months. And I got rewarded for it. But here's how much I've been rewarded. Bear in mind, I put one NFT on sale to be eligible for this reward. It sold almost immediately. That NFT had been on sale on OpenSea for 6 months, I believe. The moment it went on LooksRare, it sold.
Which NFT was that, Robin?
It was a bio vape, if you must know. Long story. And so over the course of 2 days, I've earned 0.12 WETH, from the trading fees, but I'm also collecting additional looks, and those compound automatically here into the wallet. I haven't done anything. I've literally done nothing. I've done 2 transactions. This number has been kind of consistent. Now, the thing that's popped up is if we go and look at the Explore tab, so we look on the main tab, we can look at the kind of top collections. We will see up here Meebits and Loot. Not the collections you would expect to see there. And there's a very good reason for this, which is Meebits and Loot have no royalty. So they don't collect any money when you make a trade. This means that for traders who are wash trading, because that's a lot of that is what is going on here, they're sending from one wallet to another, they don't have to pay any fees to the collection owners. They can just do the trade. And of course, a piece of that trade is then going to go to the platform. So it's not a net zero piece. If anyone's interested, Dingaling, he's like a savage NFT collector, he wrote a really long thread on why the wash trading wasn't necessarily a bad thing, because we tend to think of wash trading as a bad thing. All of this is like, it's early days for this platform, but what I'm really curious to hear from you guys is, now that you know all of this, now you've seen all this, and I think the name itself looks rare. Just feels like it kind of marries better with this community than perhaps other platforms have. I'm just curious what you think of this platform, and whether you think it's got a chance to challenge OpenSea at all, because I feel like OpenSea needs to be challenged. Go, Harry.
Yeah, in a number of ways, and I'm, you know, we've announced that the drop we're doing with Rafiq, we are doing in partnership with Known Origin. I'm very fond of the Known Origin team. I've really found them to be incredibly hands-on with what we've got going on, and I'm less impressed with what I see with the challenges presented around what we're trying to do with OpenSea, and not going into too many details. I mean, I have to say, when you start seeing people like Known Origin fully advocating and even sort of designing this EIP 2981, you know, royalty standards for all across platforms, it's in fact OpenSea who are not adopting this, and therefore, you know, these challenges that aren't often visible to collectors or really of any concern to collectors, it's the artists that aren't really being supported by the platforms under the hood. And I think that for me, it presents challenges for other platforms, and obviously there's no incentive for OpenSea to really start doing this unless they come under pressure. But to have artists lose out on secondary market sales because OpenSea won't play ball, I mean, that in my book is reason enough for, you know, exploration of other players to enter the space, and for us indeed to support those people who have a shared vision and interest in, you know, the bigger picture here.
I mean, this is an exact example of what we were just talking about, with outdated ideas being maintained in Web3. Like trying to siphon all people to one marketplace rather than, you know, lateral sort of benefit for artists and participators across all of them.
Elisa, any thoughts?
Yeah, well, one thing that I've found is that's interesting in the community is sometimes just because something gets big, people start turning against it. And I do want to give OpenSea the credit for like being one of the enablers of this whole NFT boom, because I mean, they were like one of the pioneers, and they just maybe didn't know what they had to do, how they could share their profit or whatever. I mean, I don't know. I just know what it's like to have a startup, and I just hope that not everybody turns against it, even though I think new platforms should come and challenge and take a market share, just like Looks Rare, because I think it's a great brand. I think it looks great. I love the profit sharing. So I think it could become a real challenger for OpenSea for sure.
As someone, sorry, Robin, who didn't like read that tweet thread about why the wash trading element of this might not be as bad as we might think, could you give perhaps a little summary of that thesis?
Well, I'll read out the tweet thread, because Dingaling spent quite a lot of time putting this together. So there's an opportunity here. It's like when a new DeFi protocol launches, there are savage incentives if you are early. And of course, for the wash traders, that makes sense, to generate as much volume as possible, to generate the largest rewards as possible. But that really is like its first week, and then it washes away, if you'll pardon the expression. So he says you might be thinking to yourself at this point, this is real bad. How could they let people wash trade? Well, the issue is that it's not a zero-sum game. You know, you don't just wash trade for free. There are gas fees, of course, and then every trade itself donates 2% of the WETH and fees to Lux stakers. So even if there's a ton of wash trading, if you hold the Lux token, you get a piece of that. So as he says, if you wash traded 1,000 ETH, you'd be down 20 ETH in fees. But you're actually creating 2,000 ETH worth of volume because you're playing both sides of that market. So there's quite a lot that goes back to the platform here. He also says that as the rewards come down, And as more and more people come to the platform, it becomes less and less profitable to be a wash trader, to the point where if they've successfully brought enough eyeballs to the project, it will become so unprofitable to wash trade that it will just stop, because it'll actually be better to just be a standard trader. So I think what's interesting here is that Dingaling's point is that he wanted to make a lot of noise. And I think the platform wanted to create a lot of noise. And this vampire attack is because that's what it was. And if you remember, the most famous vampire attack was SushiSwap. And SushiSwap just drew all the LP tokens away from Uniswap, got them onto its platform. And then suddenly you had this, you bootstrapped a user base. That was absolutely fascinating. What's weird about all of this is that we think of this like I use Facebook or I don't use Facebook, but it's not the case, because at no point did the NFTs ever belong to the platform. You've never deposited them there. So you can have an item for sale on OpenSea and it can be simultaneously for sale on LooksRare. So if you've got a better chance of selling it on LooksRare, but you think that it's better to have, a presence on OpenSea, you can also do that. You can have it for sale on Rarible as well. There's nothing to stop you, the end user, from benefiting from all of these platforms simultaneously. So who's the loser here? That's the question. Who's the loser? It's a real question, by the way.
I mean, I suppose it's after the price floor of a 10,000 generative project has gone up 20 ETH in a week, it's the person who buys in at that point, and then is left holding this thing that might not ever sell again after the wash trading stops.
But I disagree with you here. Mango,
maybe
is it not that every you learn a valuable lesson, and that valuable lesson is worth every ETH you paid for it?
I like to get wrecked as much as the next guy, but
I don't think everyone likes to get wrecked. Elisa, do you have a horror story about how badly you've been wrecked on an NFT?
When I first started trading, I bought like 2 of this collection. There was something about music, and it just totally fell down to the floor. I tried to sell it like 0.01 or something, and it never happened. So that was the worst one. And one of them was like a fat guy. Like I wanted a female, and I got, because it was random, I got this like dude, like really big dude. And I was like, oh, I want to sell, I want to have a girl. And then this whole collection just went broke. So that was sad. One of my first buys. Yeah.
It's a coming of age thing, I would say, in the crypto space, sort of a requirement almost.
Harry, have you been wrecked badly by anything?
Too few to mention. I have a longer term vision, and it's more about getting behind artists. And I can see many a black hole that I could have fallen down, but yeah.
Oh my God, I've been wrecked so many times. I am surprised I can even sit down anymore. It's ridiculous. In NFTs, in altcoins, in like pretty much any which way you can get wrecked, I've been wrecked. And I enjoy it, genuinely. You get to a point where you go like, I know what I'm doing. This will never happen again. And then it happens. You go, fuck. And then you kind of shrug and just get on with it. But like with NFTs, like probably, oh God, I'm not even going to embarrass myself with it. Just go and look at my collection. You'll know. But hopefully the winners outstrip the losers. I'm curious from you guys what you are excited about for the year ahead. NFTs went massive last year. There was so much interest, so much, I suppose we can call it innovation, but I guess the better word is exploration in this space. Starting with you, Mango, what are you excited about for the year ahead?
I would say like music and gaming as industries, I think, are set to overhaul in a big way. Not just next year, but like ramping up in a picking up pace. Just to maybe just briefly talk about a project that's related to charged particles. We've just announced the sort of the first platform built on top of our protocol, which is a music distribution platform called Unchained Music. And so they're sort of challenging the model of music distribution to Web 2 streaming services. So typically that kind of business model works that you either pay an upfront fee to distribute to your YouTube Music, Spotify, Tidal, iTunes, all of those, or you pay a percentage of the royalties you earn on those already quite extractive platforms. And so using, interest-bearing tokens and NFTs, this platform is doing a free music distribution. So you don't have to pay. They will eat the cost of distributing your music to these hundreds of platforms, and you get to keep all of your royalties. So the royalties come back from these platforms. They go into an NFT and start earning interest, and on-chain music keeps the interest that's earned, and then the artist gets to keep all of their royalties. So free music distribution and 100% of the royalties kept is sort of a no-brainer for especially artists that are, that might not have been able to, enter those spaces before. So that's really exciting. And I think lots of, and the thing is, the user doesn't need to know any crypto. They don't have to have a wallet. They don't have to have anything. They just get to sort of experience the benefits of crypto, and still distribute their music through the standard sorts of model. So that kind of idea, and other business models like it. I think music and then gaming is another one. I think the play to earn modality is going to explode even more, and I think we'll hopefully find ourselves like with games that are fun to play and then you earn money from them, not like these game mechanics are built around the DeFi itself. I think we've made DeFi more fun rather than making fun games integrate with DeFi. Nothing to no shade at any of the projects that exist, but I think there's some maturity that we'll see as being paid to do what you like to do in the metaverse develops.
Harry, what are you looking forward to in the year to come ahead?
I think just general excitement around what's occurring here. I think more people being onboarded into the space is only going to create more opportunity. Mango, I totally agree with you. Music is just it's crying out. I mean, it's there, and I have so many thoughts on that. And I don't have enough time. I'm actually going to have to jump off really soon. Film is a big one for me. I really think that. I mean, I minted the first cinematic short films on the blockchain, and I really feel that there is a space for filmmakers to unite from an artistic perspective, to challenge existing distribution models, to look at the way in which they can use the smart contract in clever and innovative ways, screenings in the metaverse. All of these things have not yet been realized, and there is a group of filmmakers, an NFT Filmmakers Squad, and they meet regularly on Clubhouse and Twitter Spaces, and there is an entire army of creatives that are crying out to do this. And I am sincerely looking forward to seeing this happen in the next 12 months. I think that is the big growth area that interests me.
I have a feeling it's going to be slow. I think if you're more of a trad or digital artist, it's quite easy to step into NFTs, but we have, as filmmakers, we have an investment in physical camera equipment, and it's hard to let go of that. And I have a hard time letting go of it, and we're not going to. But we're trying to mix that up. I like you. I would like to see our industry, step into this space, because there are so many things that it can solve. Even just the distribution of royalties to the people who deserve them could be fairer and more equitable, and that's interesting. But also just the assets that we're building our scenes out of could become a source of income for people who design them for us. That for me is really interesting, and they could get that income directly. We could showcase it. We provide a platform for people to just make the rock that dances around in the background. I would love to do that. I think that's really interesting, and just breaking it down and making it modular. Elisa, for you, it's clear the project and the product, I guess, is going to be a big source of interest for you. But is there anything broader that you're excited by in the world of NFTs for next year?
Yeah, for sure. One thing I've been thinking about a lot is how real life events and NFTs can start becoming more immersive together. So for example, I've been talking to these guys, IYK, who are making merchandise that has an NFC chip. So you can scan it, and then it has an NFT connected to it. I don't know if you heard of them. And so people can start going to festivals and then scanning this chip, and then on chain they can just airdrop them something, give them a POAP or something like that. I think that's super exciting if it's going to be more explored, that it's not just happening on the internet, but also in real life, and it's going to become pretty easy to integrate with the tech. So yeah, I think that's that would be super cool. I mean, depending on the situation with the pandemic, of course.
Well, I think where we've got to with the Defiant is that we are masters of our own destiny, and it was pretty clear last year that we need to go into Unreal Engine. Al,
Yes.
I think it's time for you to pilot me around our space.
I'm so excited for this right now.
Well, are you? I wouldn't be, because it's crap. Honestly, I need to get rid of that. I need to make it this. There we go. So literally, he's just piloting me around this environment, and this is literally something we picked off the Quixel marketplace, which is just photogrammetry. It's photorealistic scans of stuff, and now you're all going to have motion sickness. But these are trees, and actually it was snowing before. But the limitations of it are, of course, that I am simply a green screen human, and if I want to take advantage of this as a green screen human, I need to set up the shots and then match them in post-production. The moment we start getting into full motion capture and full virtual reality or digital capture, there's going to be very little we can't do. I'll just show the NFTs in the environment. So there you have a charged particle. This is one of this is I forget who the artist is.
That's by the Guild. There's actually a Bored Ape nested inside that.
There's a Bored Ape. That's why I picked it out, because there's a Bored Ape nested inside this NFT. We right click saved it. I'm sorry. Hopefully the ape is safe. We'd like to think it is. So the goal is basically So the goal is basically that we would, over time, we would release the shows that we make as playable environments, so you could go and explore them for yourself. Because once you build these environments, they are in fact playable games. So there we have Zone in the background, and you get real-time ray tracing, you get real-time reflections, everything else. It's very, very cool. But again, it was so early in what we're doing here, and we're still trying to figure out how to make it all happen. But the ability to just blow shit up, make it rain, literally make it rain, just press a button, it could start raining. But once I'm fully digital, using our optical motion capture system, it's going to be the bomb. It's going to be the bomb. So, look, I'm in a tree. Stop! Stop it! You're going to give everyone a nosebleed. Stop it! He's not paid enough, to be fair. But still, listen, thank you so much, everyone, for joining the stream today. It was a pleasure to have you all. Harry Edmiston, Mango Dogwood, and Elisa Melito, Zone, Creative Work Studios, and Charged Particles representing in the house. Thank you so much for joining us, and I wish you every success in your endeavors this year. I will see you somewhere on the moon, probably. Peace out.
Thank you, sir.
Out, play the music.